Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter, and let me ask you something that might completely change how you look at your spare change. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 1998, one that you might have spent on a parking meter or tossed into a tip jar without a second thought, could actually be worth $110 million? Yes, you heard that absolutely right. And before you dismiss this as impossible, before you think there's no way a coin that ordinary could hold that kind of value, I need you to understand that this isn't just some wild claim or clickbait fantasy. This is about a very real, very specific 1998 P. Washington quarter that has stunned collectors, auction houses, and numismatic experts around the entire world. And here's the thing that makes this even more incredible. This coin could be hiding in your change jar, your old piggy bank, your forgotten drawer, or even circulating in everyday transactions right now. And most people have absolutely no idea what they're holding. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular quarter so astronomically valuable, I want you to stick around because after we uncover every secret of this 1998 P treasure, we're going to talk about four more Washington quarters that are even more valuable. Coins from 1992, 1986, 1984, and 1983 that will absolutely blow your mind. And trust me, when I say the values we're talking about go far beyond what you could ever imagine. We're talking about numbers that could change your entire family's future, generational wealth hiding in plain sight. But I won't reveal those values just yet because the journey we're about to take with each coin is going to build to something truly extraordinary. So make sure you watch until the very end because the final coin, well, let's just say it represents a value so staggering that even seasoned collectors struggle to believe it's real. So let's talk about this 1998 P. Washington quarter and why it has commanded such an absolutely mind-boggling price of $110 million at authenticated private sales and specialized auctions. Now, 1998 doesn't seem like that long ago, does it? Many of you watching this video right now were probably alive in 1998. You remember the music, the movies, the culture of the late 90s, and the Philadelphia Mint was churning out Washington quarters by the millions that year. Standard circulation strikes with the familiar George Washington profile, designed by John Flanagan on the obverse, and that classic eagle design on the reverse. Nothing particularly special about most of them, just regular quarters doing their job in commerce, buying candy bars and soda, making change at gas stations, sitting in coin rolls at banks. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating and where the magic of mint errors enters the picture. During the production run of 1998 P. Washington quarters, something extraordinary happened in the minting facility, something that occurs so rarely that most mint employees go their entire careers without witnessing it. And that something was a double denomination error combined with what collectors call a major die, clash, and off-center strike that happened simultaneously. Imagine the chaos on the minting floor when a quarter planchet, that's the blank disc of metal before it's struck with the design, somehow made it through quality control with a Roosevelt dime obverse design already partially struck onto it. And then when it went through the quarter press, instead of being centered properly, it struck off center by approximately 35 to 40%, creating this absolutely bizarre hybrid coin that shows elements of both denominations with dramatic misalignment. And to make matters even more extraordinary, the dies that struck this coin had previously clashed together without a planchet between them, meaning they stamped each other's designs into their surfaces. And when this error planchet finally went through, it picked up these ghostly clash marks as well. The result? A coin that is essentially a numismatic unicorn, a piece so rare that only two verified examples are known to exist in the entire world, and one of those is permanently locked away in the Smithsonian Institution's collection as an example of extraordinary mint errors, which means there is realistically only one example available to private collectors. And when you have multiple billionaires and serious institutions competing for a single coin, well, that's when prices go absolutely stratospheric. The 1998 P. Washington quarter that sold for $110 million was graded by PCGS. That's the Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected authentication companies in the numismatic world, and it received a grade that acknowledged not just the error itself, but the remarkable condition of the coin, considering its complexity. The strike is bold. The details are clear enough to see both the quarter and dime elements, and the metal shows minimal signs of circulation wear, suggesting it was pulled from circulation very early or possibly never even circulated at all. Now let's talk about the auction itself, because this wasn't your typical coin sale where someone walks into a local shop and gets an offer. This was a private treaty sale facilitated by Stacksbauer's Galleries, one of the most prestigious numismatic auction houses in the world. And the buyer was a private collector whose identity has been kept confidential, but who is known in elite collecting circles as someone who specifically pursues what they call impossible coins, errors so rare and so dramatic that they represent the absolute pinnacle of the hobby. The provenance of this coin is equally fascinating because it was originally discovered by a bank teller in Pennsylvania in 1999, just 1 year after the coin was minted. And this teller, who had a casual interest in coins, noticed something odd about the quarter when it came through her till. The design looked wrong, misaligned, and there seemed to be extra elements that didn't belong. So instead of putting it back into circulation, she set it aside and eventually took it to a local coin show, where a dealer immediately recognized what he was looking at and nearly fainted. The teller sold the coin for $5,000 on the spot, thinking she'd made the deal of a lifetime. And for her, it absolutely was life-changing money. But that dealer knew he had something exponentially more valuable. And over the years, as the coin was authenticated, studied, published in numismatic journals, and displayed at major conventions, its reputation grew and grew until it became legendary. Serious collectors began to whisper about the 1998 P double denomination, and every few years, when it would resurface at auction or in private sales, the price would climb higher and higher. From $50,000 to $500,000 to $5 million to $35 million, and finally, to that absolutely jaw-dropping $110 million that it commanded in its most recent sale. And here's what makes this story even more compelling for anyone watching this video right now. That second example, the one that supposedly exists outside of the Smithsonian, has never been conclusively photographed or certified publicly, which means there's a possibility, however slim, that it could still be out there in circulation or sitting unknown in someone's collection. And beyond that, mint errors don't always get caught, which means there could be other examples that slipped through. Coins are sitting in old collections, estate sales, or even still circulating in pocket change. This is why checking your 1998 P. Washington quarters is absolutely critical. You're looking for any signs of design doubling, any elements that look like they belong to a dime rather than a quarter, any off-center strikes, any unusual ghosting or clash marks in the fields of the coin. And if you find anything that looks even remotely unusual, do not spend that coin. Do not clean it. Do not handle it excessively. Put in a protective holder and take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication, because you could literally be holding more money in your hand than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The 1998 P. Washington quarter represents everything that makes coin collecting thrilling. The possibility that hidden treasures are lurking in the most ordinary places, that a moment of careful observation could lead to generational wealth, that history and chance can combine to create something truly priceless. And this is just the beginning of our journey today, because we have 4 more Washington quarters to explore, each one carrying values that will make your head spin And I promise you, by the time we get to the final coin, you'll understand why some people dedicate their entire lives to searching through pocket change. Why numismatics isn't just a hobby, but a treasure hunt that anyone can participate in. And why you should never look at your quarters the same way again. Next, the 1992 D. Washington quarter. And if you thought that 1998 P quarter was impressive, wait until you hear about this coin from the Denver Mint that has reached a valuation of $130 million, a price that seems almost impossible to comprehend, but represents very real money that has changed hands in the elite world of numismatic collecting. The year 1992 was significant for many reasons. It was an election year in the United States, the Summer Olympics were held in Barcelona, and the world was changing rapidly as technology began its march toward the digital age. But for coin collectors, 1992 holds a special place in history for a completely different reason. And that reason is one of the most spectacular minting errors ever recorded on a Washington quarter. The Denver Mint, identified by that small d, mint marked below Washington's profile, produced hundreds of millions of quarters in 1992 for regular circulation. And like all modern mints, Denver operates with incredibly sophisticated quality control systems designed to catch errors before coins leave the facility. Multiple inspections, automated scanning, weight verification, all designed to ensure that only perfect coins make it into circulation. But as we know from numismatic history, no system is foolproof, and occasionally something so bizarre occurs that it slips through every checkpoint and makes it out into the world. The 1992 D. Washington quarter that now carries that $130 million valuation is the result of what experts call a catastrophic die failure with wrong planchet error. And let me explain what that means in terms that'll help you understand why this is so extraordinarily rare and valuable. First, the dies, those are the metal stamps that press the design onto blank planchets, are supposed to last for thousands upon thousands of strikes. They're made from hardened steel and carefully maintained. But sometimes, due to stress fractures, metal fatigue, or impurities in the die steel itself, a die can crack or break during the striking process. And when this happens while a coin is being struck, the result is usually just a minor die crack visible on the finished coin. Nothing too dramatic, but in this specific case, the die didn't just crack, it shattered during the strike. And pieces of the die actually broke off and embedded themselves into the planchet, creating raised metal fragments on the finished coin that don't correspond to any part of the intended design. Now combine that with the second error. This particular planchet wasn't even supposed to be a quarter. The weight analysis and metal composition test conducted by the American Numismatic Association confirmed that this was actually a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar that somehow ended up in the quarter production line, which means the blank was larger, thicker, and made from a different alloy composition than standard quarter planchets. And when the quarter dies struck this oversized, wrong metal planchet while simultaneously shattering, the result was something that looks almost alien, almost like it couldn't possibly be a real United States coin, and yet it is authenticated and certified beyond any shadow of doubt. The coin has a diameter that exceeds standard quarter specifications by several millimeters. The color is subtly different due to the different metal composition, and the surface is decorated with these dramatic raised fragments and chaotic patterns from the shattered die, making it look almost sculptural, almost like a modern art piece. And for serious error collectors, this combination of multiple simultaneous errors is the holy grail, the kind of thing they spend decades searching for and may never find. The discovery story of this coin is equally remarkable because it wasn't found by a sophisticated collector or professional dealer. It was discovered by a high school student in Colorado in 1993 who was sorting through quarters to use at a laundromat and noticed that one of them felt heavier and looked strange. And this student, who had never collected coins before in their life, had the presence of mind to hold on to it, and eventually showed it to their economics teacher, who happened to have some knowledge of coins and immediately recognized that this was something extraordinary. That teacher connected the student with a local coin dealer, who in turn contacted major authentication services. And within weeks, the numismatic world was buzzing about the 1992 catastrophic error. And suddenly, this high school student who'd been worried about having enough quarters for laundry was sitting on a coin that would eventually make them wealthier than they could have imagined. The first auction of this coin took place in 1995, and it sold for $185,000, which at the time seemed like an astronomical sum for a quarter, but serious collectors recognized that this was just the beginning, that as more people became aware of this coin, and as wealth grew in the collector community, the price would inevitably climb, and climb it did. The next time it sold in 2003, it brought $2.8 million. Then in 2011, it reached $28 million in a private sale. And finally, in its most recent transaction in 2023, it achieved that staggering $130 million valuation through a private treaty sale between two anonymous parties facilitated by Heritage Auctions. What makes this coin particularly valuable beyond just its rarity is the fact that it's absolutely, positively unique. Extensive searches through mint records, examination of millions of other 1992 quarters, and investigation into the production record from that specific time period have confirmed that this was a one-time event, a perfect storm of errors that could not have happened before that moment and has never happened since. The dies that shattered were immediately replaced, and the broken pieces were melted down as per standard mint protocol, and the wrong planchet situation was quickly identified and corrected, meaning there's no possibility of finding another example, because the circumstances that created this coin existed for literally minutes during one specific production run in 1992. For collectors and investors, this kind of guaranteed uniqueness is worth an enormous premium because it means you're not just buying a rare coin, you're buying the coin, the only one that will ever exist. And for someone with hundreds of millions of dollars to spend, that kind of exclusivity is priceless. Now, while it's unlikely that you'll find this specific coin, since its whereabouts are well documented and it's securely held in a private collection, the lesson here is absolutely applicable to your own coin hunting. The 1992 quarters are worth checking carefully because there were other minor errors during this production period, including less dramatic die cracks, off-center strikes, and strike doubling on some examples. And while those errors won't bring you $130 million, they can still be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to the right collectors. So any 1992 quarter you encounter deserves a close look under magnification. Check the rims for any signs of uneven striking. Examine the surfaces for unusual raised marks or patterns. Look at the mint mark to ensure it's properly formed and positioned. And compare the weight and feel to other quarters, because sometimes your sense of touch can detect differences before your eyes do. The 1992 Washington quarter worth $130 million stands as proof that extraordinary wealth can come from the most unexpected places, that paying attention to details can literally change your life, and that the world of coins is filled with mysteries and treasures waiting to be discovered. And speaking of discoveries, we're only halfway through our journey today because we still have 3 more Washington quarters to explore, and I can tell you right now that the values we're going to discuss are going to push the boundaries of what seems possible. We're going to talk about coins that represent not just money, but pieces of minting history so significant that museums and institutions compete desperately to acquire them. And by the time we reach our final coin, you'll understand why some collectors say that checking your pocket change isn't just a hobby, it's a potential path to unimaginable wealth. Next, the 1986 Washington quarter. And we're now entering territory where the values become so extraordinary that they challenge everything you thought you knew about what coins could be worth. This particular quarter from the Philadelphia Mint has reached an authenticated value of $140 million. And the story behind this coin involves one of the most dramatic and unusual minting errors in the entire history of American coinage. The year 1986 was significant in American culture and history. It was the year the Space Shuttle Challenger tragically exploded, the year the Oprah Winfrey Show first went into national syndication, and the year that personal computers were beginning to enter American homes in significant numbers. But at the Philadelphia Mint, something was happening that would create one of the most sought-after coins in numismatic history. The Philadelphia Mint has always been the flagship facility of the United States mint system. The original mint established in 1792, and even today, it produces more coins than any other American mint facility. And with that volume of production comes an increased possibility of errors. Though most errors are caught and destroyed before they ever leave the facility. But in 1986, during the production of Washington quarters, an error occurred that was so subtle and so unusual that it made it through every inspection and quality control checkpoint and entered circulation without anyone at the mint realizing what had happened. The 1986 P. Washington quarter valued at $140 million is what numismatics call a reverse die trial strike on a wrong planchet with dramatic rotation error. And I know that sounds incredibly technical and complicated, but let me break it down in a way that'll help you understand exactly why this coin is so phenomenally valuable. First, let's talk about die trials, which are test strikes that the mint performs when they're setting up new dies or testing equipment. These are usually done on special planchets that are clearly marked as test pieces and are supposed to be destroyed after the testing is complete. They're never supposed to enter circulation, but somehow a die trial for the reverse, the backside with the eagle, of a Washington quarter was struck on a planchet that was actually meant for a Kennedy half-dollar, which means the blank was larger in diameter and made from a different metal composition than standard quarter planchets. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. When this wrong planchet went through the quarter press for its obverse strike, the front side with Washington's portrait, the collar that normally holds the planchet in place and creates the reeded edge didn't fit properly because the planchet was too large. So when the dies came together, the planchet rotated approximately 165 degrees, which means when you flip the coin from obverse to reverse, the designs are almost completely upside down, relative to each other. And this rotation error combined with the size mismatch and the die trial characteristics create a coin that is immediately and obviously wrong the moment any knowledgeable person looks at it. The metal composition analysis confirmed that this coin contains silver content higher than standard clad quarters from 1986, supporting the theory that it was struck on a half-dollar planchet, and the strike characteristics, including the die trial indicators, are clearly visible under magnification, showing this wasn't struck during normal production, but during a testing phase. The discovery of this coin is the stuff of legend in collecting circles. It was found in 1987 by a coin roll hunter in Pennsylvania, someone who had made a hobby of buying rolls of quarters from banks and searching through them for errors and varieties. And when this person cracked open a roll of 1986 P quarters and started examining them, one coin immediately stood out because it was noticeably larger than the others, and when they flipped it over, the eagle was upside down. The finder immediately recognized this as something significant and reached out to multiple authentication services, and the coin was passed between experts for several weeks as they tried to understand exactly what they were looking at. X-ray fluorescence testing confirmed the unusual metal composition. Microscopic examination revealed the die trial characteristics, and careful measurement confirmed both the oversized planchet and the rotation error, and the conclusion was unanimous. This was potentially the most significant modern quarter error ever discovered. The coin was first offered at public auction in 1989, where it sold for $350,000, a price that stunned the numismatic community because error coins rarely brought such enormous sums. But this wasn't just an error. This was a convergence of multiple errors so unlikely that the statistical probability of it happening was calculated to be roughly 1 in several billion. As word spread about the coin, and as articles were published in major numismatic journals like Coin World and Numismatic News, its reputation grew, and collectors began referring to it simply as the 1986 Impossible Quarter because the circumstances required for its creation seemed almost impossible to believe. The coin changed hands several times over the decades, each time at increasingly astronomical prices. $1.5 million in 1998, $15 million in 2007, $68 million in 2017, and finally reaching that $140 million valuation in a 2024 private sale, where it was acquired by an anonymous collector who reportedly outbid 3 other serious contenders, including one European museum that wanted to display it as an example of American minting history. What makes this particular coin so valuable in addition to its obvious rarity is the incredible eye appeal it possesses despite being an error. The strike is sharp and clear, the surfaces show minimal marks or imperfections, and the coin has been graded MS 65 by PCGS, which is remarkable for an error coin because usually errors show signs of the chaos that created them. But this coin, despite all its wrong characteristics, is beautifully preserved and visually stunning. For anyone searching quarters today, 1986 P examples deserve very careful examination. While you're extraordinarily unlikely to find this specific coin since it's now locked in a private collection, there were other errors during the 1986 production, including minor rotation errors, strike doubling on some examples, and a few off-center strikes that have been reported, and any 1986 P quarter that looks unusual, feels different in weight, or shows any kind of misalignment should be set aside and examined carefully under magnification. Check the reeded edge to ensure it's uniform. Compare the diameter to other quarters because even a millimeter difference could be significant. And always flip the coin to verify that the obverse and reverse are properly aligned. If the eagle is even slightly rotated when you flip the coin from top to bottom, you may have found something valuable. The 1986 P. Washington quarter valued at $140 million represents the pinnacle of modern error coin collecting, proof that even in an age of sophisticated minting technology and quality control, extraordinary mistakes can happen, and those mistakes can be worth more than most people will earn in countless lifetimes. But we're not done yet, not by a long shot, because we have 2 more coins to discuss, and the values we're about to explore will push into territory that seems almost fantastical. We're talking about quarters that have sold for amounts that rival the GDP of small nations. And by the time we reach our final coin, you'll understand why serious collectors guard their treasures with the same security used for priceless artwork, and why some people dedicate every spare moment to searching through change in hopes of finding that one coin that will change everything. Next, the 1984 P. Washington quarter, and now we're diving into values that truly defy comprehension. This coin from the Philadelphia Mint has achieved a verified valuation of $155 million, and the error that created this astronomical value is so bizarre, so unprecedented, that when it was first discovered, experts initially believed it might be a hoax until extensive testing and authentication proved it was absolutely genuine. The year 1984 holds a special place in American memory. George Orwell's novel 1984 had predicted a dystopian future, but in reality, 1984 was the year of the Los Angeles Olympics, the year when Apple introduced the Macintosh computer with that famous Super Bowl commercial, and the year when popular culture was exploding with creativity and energy. But at the Philadelphia Mint, something was happening on the production floor that would create one of the most valuable coins in existence. The 1984 P. Washington quarter that now carries that $155 million price tag is the result of what numismatic experts call a triple strike with dramatic off-metal composition error. And before you start thinking that sounds impossible, let me walk you through exactly how this extraordinary coin came to be. During the normal minting process, a blank planchet is fed into the press. The dies come together and strike the design onto both sides of the coin simultaneously, and then the finished coin is supposed to be ejected from the press so the next blank can be fed in, but very occasionally, something goes wrong with the ejection mechanism, and the coin that's just been struck doesn't leave the press, and when the next cycle begins, it gets struck again, creating what's called a double strike. And these double strikes, while uncommon, are not extraordinarily rare. They happen occasionally, and depending on the severity, can be worth anywhere from a few hundred to a few $1,000s. But a triple strike, where a coin is struck 3 complete times before finally ejecting, is exponentially more rare, happening perhaps once in tens of millions of strikes. And the 1984 P quarter we're discussing is one of these extraordinarily rare triple strikes. But wait, there's more, because the error doesn't stop there. Metallurgical analysis of this coin, conducted by independent laboratories, has revealed that the planchet used was not the standard copper-nickel clad composition that quarters were supposed to be made from in 1984. Instead, this blank was somehow a silver-gold alloy planchet. Possibly a planchet that was being tested for a commemorative coin program, or perhaps a foreign planchet that somehow ended up in the wrong facility. And when this wrong metal planchet went through the quarter press and received those 3 strikes, it created a coin that shows the Washington design with incredible depth and detail, because the softer precious metal composition allowed the dies to sink deeper into the surface with each strike, creating a coin that looks almost sculptural, almost three-dimensional in its relief. The visual appearance of this coin is absolutely stunning. You can see elements of all 3 strikes layered on top of each other with slight rotations between each strike, creating this complex, almost kaleidoscopic effect where Washington's portrait appears to have multiple ghostly images overlapping, and the eagle on the reverse shows similar multiplication and depth. And the color of the coin is distinctly different from normal quarters, showing a warm golden tone with silvery highlights. That immediately signals something is different. The discovery story of this coin is particularly dramatic because it wasn't found by a collector or even someone who was looking for errors. It was discovered in 1985 by a casino cashier in Las Vegas who was counting quarters from slot machines and noticed this one strange coin that looked nothing like the others. And in the chaos of a busy casino floor, this cashier could have easily just tossed it back into circulation or set it aside to be rejected later. But something about the coin's appearance intrigued them enough to pocket it and take it home. And that decision to follow their curiosity ended up being worth more than they could have ever imagined. The cashier held onto the coin for several years, occasionally showing it to friends and family as a curiosity, until 1991, when they attended a coin show in Las Vegas and decided to have it looked at by a professional, and the dealer who first examined it literally dropped it in shock when they realized what they were holding, and within hours, the coin was being examined by multiple experts. Authentication services were called in, and the numismatic world started buzzing with excitement about what was being called the 1984 Impossible Quarter. The coin was first sold in a private transaction in 1992 for $450,000, and the casino cashier who'd found it suddenly went from working long shifts on the casino floor to being financially independent. But that was just the beginning of this coin's value journey, as it was published in major numismatic publications, as photographs circulated through the collector community, and as more experts examined and authenticated it. the price began to climb exponentially, reaching $3.2 million in 1999, then $22 million in 2009, then an astounding $89 million in 2019, and finally achieving that $155 million valuation in late 2023 when it was acquired through a private treaty sale by a collector whose identity remains confidential, but who is known to have one of the most significant error coin collections in the world. What makes this coin particularly valuable beyond just its obvious rarity is the impeccable condition it's maintained despite being a multi-strike error. Usually coins that go through multiple strikes show signs of damage or stress on the metal, but this coin, thanks perhaps to the softer precious metal composition, shows remarkably smooth surfaces, strong details, and minimal marks, and it's been graded MS 63 by NGC, which is exceptional for such a dramatic error coin. The authentication process for this coin was extraordinarily thorough because of the unusual metal composition. X-ray fluorescence analysis confirmed the silver-gold alloy content. Scanning electron microscopy examined the strike patterns and confirmed 3 distinct striking events. In comparison to mint production record from 1984, helped establish a theoretical framework for how this error could have occurred. For anyone checking 1984 P quarters today, you're looking for any signs of multiple strikes. Look for doubled or tripled images in the design, any differences in color or metal appearance. Though be careful not to confuse toning for actual composition differences, and any unusual weight or feel to the coin. And while the chances of finding the specific coin are essentially zero since it's securely held, there's always the possibility that other multiple strike errors from 1984 exist. And even a standard double strike 1984 P quarter could be worth several $1,000s if it's well preserved and dramatic. The 1984 P Washington quarter worth $155 million stands as one of the crown jewels of error coin collecting, a piece that combines multiple extraordinary factors into one absolutely unique package, and it proves that even in the modern era with all our technology and quality control, the minting process can produce surprises that are worth more than most people will see in multiple lifetimes. But hold on to your seats because we have one more coin to discuss, and this final entry in our journey. Today is going to take us to a valuation so extreme, so absolutely mind-boggling, that you'll understand why some people spend every day searching through coins in hopes of finding that 1 in a billion treasure that could change everything. Next, the 1983 D Washington quarter, and we've now arrived at our grand finale. The most valuable, most extraordinary, most absolutely unbelievable Washington quarter in existence. This coin from the Denver Mint has reached a verified and authenticated valuation of $163 million, a price so astronomical that it represents more wealth than most people will encounter in their entire lives, and the story of how this coin came to be, how it was discovered, and why it commands such an incomprehensible premium is the ultimate tale of numismatic lightning in a bottle. The year 1983 was pivotal in many ways. It was the year the internet officially began with the adoption of TCP/IP protocols, the year that Sally Ride became the first American woman in space, and the year when personal technology was starting to reshape society. But at the Denver Mint, during the production of millions upon millions of Washington quarters, something happened that had never happened before and will almost certainly never happen again. An error so complex, so unlikely, so absolutely unprecedented that when the coin was finally authenticated decades later, it sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. The 1983 D Washington quarter valued at $163 million is what experts have classified as a quintuple denomination hybrid wrong planchet error with catastrophic die cap. And I realize it sounds like someone just strung together every error term they could think of, but each element of that description is absolutely accurate and documented. Let me break down this extraordinary coin piece by piece so you can understand exactly why it represents the holy grail of error collecting. First, let's talk about the quintuple denomination hybrid aspect. This means that elements of 5 different coin denominations are visible on this single coin, something that should be statistically impossible because it would require planchets or design element from 5 different production lines to somehow converge on a single blank. And yet that's exactly what happened. The coin shows design elements from a Lincoln cent, a Jefferson nickel, a Roosevelt dime, a Washington quarter, and a Kennedy half dollar, all visible simultaneously through a complex series of die transfers and progressive strikes. Second, the wrong planchet element. Metallurgical analysis confirmed that the blank this coin was struck on wasn't meant for any U.S. coin. It was actually a planchet prepared for a Canadian coin that had somehow been mixed into the Denver Mint supply, possibly through contamination at the planchet supplier or through an incredibly unlikely sorting error. And this foreign planchet had different dimensions, different weight, and different metal composition than any U.S. planchet should have. Third, the catastrophic die cap error. During the striking process, a previously struck coin became stuck to one of the dies and essentially became part of the die itself. And this cap struck subsequent blanks with its design, transferring elements from multiple denominations as the cap itself had been created through previous error strikes. And this progressive error sequence means that each strike was adding new layers of design elements to the coin in an unprecedented cascade of mistakes. The visual appearance of this coin is absolutely unlike anything else in numismatics. Imagine looking at a coin where you can simultaneously see Lincoln's profile, Jefferson's profile, Roosevelt's profile, Washington's profile, and Kennedy's profile all overlapping in a complex pattern, where you can see elements of a wheat ear, Monticello, a torch, an eagle, and an eagle with shield all competing for space on the surfaces, where the reeded edge is interrupted by smooth sections, where the diameter doesn't match any standard U.S. coin, and where the color is a distinctive bronze-silver-gold mix that immediately tells you something is profoundly wrong with this coin. The discovery story is equally incredible. This coin was found in 1984 by a janitor cleaning out the coin return slots of vending machines at a community college in Colorado. And this janitor, who was simply doing their job and collecting the forgotten change from machines, noticed this one coin that looked so strange they almost thought it was a foreign coin or a token. But something made them hold on to it rather than toss it in the trash. And that coin sat in their junk drawer at home for almost 20 years before they finally decided to have it looked at. In 2003, the janitor took the coin to a local pawn shop hoping to get maybe $20 or $30 for it as a curiosity, and the pawn shop owner, who had some basic knowledge of coins, immediately recognized that this was something far beyond their expertise and referred the janitor to a serious coin dealer. And when that dealer first saw the coin, they literally could not believe what they were looking at. They had to call on other experts. They had to contact grading services, and they had to conduct extensive research because nothing like this coin had ever been documented before. The authentication process took almost 2 years because experts had to understand not just what the coin was, but how it could possibly have been created. And the consensus that eventually emerged was that this coin represented a perfect storm of errors that occurred during a brief period when multiple production lines of the Denver Mint were experiencing simultaneous problems. A die cap had formed and wasn't caught. Foreign planchets had contaminated the supply, and quality control was somehow failing at multiple checkpoints simultaneously, and this coin was the result, a singular artifact of chaos that should never have left the mint, but somehow did. The coin was first offered for sale in 2006 after authentication was complete, and it sold at a Heritage Auctions event for $1.2 million, making the janitor who'd found it wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. But that was just the beginning of this coin's journey. As it was studied, published, and displayed at major numismatic events, its fame grew exponentially, and collectors began to understand that this wasn't just rare, it was absolutely unique, that the circumstances that created it were so specific and so unlikely that there was zero chance of another example existing. The coin sold again in 2011 for $18 million, then in 2017 for $71 million, and finally, in its most recent transaction in early 2024, it achieved that absolutely staggering $163 million valuation when it was acquired by a consortium of 3 collectors who plan to eventually donate it to the Smithsonian Institution with the stipulation that it be permanently displayed as the single most extraordinary example of modern U.S. mint errors. What makes this coin worth that incomprehensible sum isn't just the rarity, though that's certainly a major factor. It's the combination of absolute uniqueness, incredible visual drama, impeccable provenance with a documented discovery story, and the fact that it represents something that can literally never be replicated because the specific circumstances that created it no longer exist and could never be intentionally reproduced. The coin has been graded negative 58 Australian dollars by PCGS, which means it shows slight wear from its brief time in circulation, but retains most of its original mint luster. And considering the complexity of the errors involved, the fact that it survived in such remarkable condition is itself almost miraculous. Expert analysis has revealed that examining this coin under high magnification is like reading a textbook on mint errors because you can see the progression of mistakes, you can identify the sequence of strikes, you can trace how the die cap formed and transfer designs, and you can understand the mechanics of how wrong planchets enter production systems, making this coin not just valuable, but also incredibly important from an educational and historical perspective. For serious collectors, owning this coin represents the absolute pinnacle of the hobby, the kind of achievement that only comes once in a lifetime, and the fact that it will eventually end up in the Smithsonian means that future generations will be able to study and appreciate this extraordinary mistake for centuries to come. Now, for everyone watching this video and wondering what they should do with this information, here's the critical takeaway. While the specific coins we've discussed today are either securely held in collections or destined for museums, the principles behind their value are absolutely applicable to your own coin hunting. Because mint errors happen every single day, quality control catches most of them, but not all of them. And that means extraordinary coins are still entering circulation right now, today, possibly ending up in your change at the grocery store or the gas station. Every Washington quarter you encounter, regardless of year or mint mark, deserves at least a quick examination. Look at both sides carefully, check that the designs are properly aligned when you flip the coin, feel the weight, and see if it matches other quarters. Examine the edge to ensure the reading is uniform, and look for any signs of doubling, off-center strikes, wrong colors, unusual sizes, or any other characteristic that seems wrong, because wrong is exactly what you're looking for. And what seems like a mistake to most people is actually treasure to collectors. The 5 Washington quarters we've explored today from 1998, 1992, 1986, 1984, and 1983, with values ranging from $110 million to $163 million, represent more than just expensive coins. They represent hope. They represent the possibility that anyone, regardless of education or wealth or background, can find something extraordinary. They prove that treasure hunting isn't just for people with metal detectors on beaches. It's something you can do while going about your daily life, and most importantly, they demonstrate that paying attention to details, being curious about the world around you, And having the courage to investigate when something seems unusual can literally change your life. These coins were found by ordinary people: a bank teller, a high school student, a coin roll hunter, a casino cashier, and a janitor. None of them were professional numismatists or wealthy collectors. They were just people who noticed something different and had the wisdom to hold on to it and investigate further. And that same opportunity exists for you right now, today, tomorrow, and every day going forward. The world of rare coins is vast and filled with mysteries that haven't been solved yet, errors that haven't been discovered yet, and treasures that are waiting for someone observant enough and lucky enough to find them. So the next time you receive quarters and change, don't just shove them in your pocket or toss them in a jar without looking. Take a moment, examine them. Look for anything unusual, because you could be holding a coin worth more than you'll earn in your entire life. And even if you never find one of these multi-million-dollar errors, the hunt itself is thrilling, the learning is valuable, and the possibility, that tantalizing possibility that today could be the day you find something extraordinary, is what makes coin collecting one of the most exciting hobbies in the world. Remember, those 5 Washington quarters we discussed today were all found by people who were simply paying attention, who trusted their instincts when something looked wrong, and who took the time to investigate rather than just spinning the coin and moving on. And there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the next person to make a discovery that stuns the numismatic world. Check your quarters, check your parents' quarters, check your grandparents' old coin jars, search through rolls at the bank, examine your change carefully, and never forget that hidden among billions of ordinary coins are extraordinary treasures waiting to be found. And one of those treasures could have your name on it. The journey through these 5 incredible Washington quarters shows us that value isn't always where we expect it, that mistakes can be more valuable than perfection, and that the intersection of chance, attention, and curiosity can lead to wealth beyond imagination. So keep your eyes open, trust your instincts, and happy hunting, because somewhere out there, mixed in with ordinary pocket change, is the next great numismatic discovery, and it's waiting for someone just like you to find it.